turning red, you create a phobia called erythrophobia. So you've discovered you have social anxiety. Welcome to the club. Hey there and welcome to Blushing Phoenix. My name is April. I'm the founder of Blushing Phoenix and I help people move through their redness and into living their best life. So one of the big things that we find with social anxiety is it's a very me-centered, hyper-fixated focus on what does the world around me think about me? Am I looking good enough? Am I feeling good enough? Am I portraying myself good enough? How am I representing myself to the world? Just this fear of judgment that is so heavy that in turn, for a lot of people, creates a fight or flight reaction. The sympathetic nervous system starts to kind of go into like, oh my gosh, we're not safe here, we don't belong here, survive. Therefore, cortisol releases in the body, which is a stress hormone, causing the vascular system to dilate. All of those blood vessels in this area start to dilate. Blood pumps through the system really harshly because that's what happens when adrenaline starts pumping, and then we get this flushed appearance. I am April. I tend to flush myself. I am a chest and neck flusher, and I started this channel because I was looking for some sort of information about what do we do about this, and there was nothing to be found. And when I saw pictures that looked similar to something of what I had going on, it was either people had these crazy syndromes that were like linked to death, or there was some sort of psychological issue going on and yet there was no outcomes. So I created Blushing Phoenix so that we could talk more openly about our struggles with turning red. And when you fear turning red, you create a phobia called erythrophobia. I often say it very wrong and I call it eurythrophobia, but it's erythrophobia, and that is the fear of turning red. For a lot of people, that means that we display our feelings. Everything's put out into the open of how we're feeling. And then people are allowed to make judgments based on what they see in us. Oh, my husband would kill me if he saw how this camera is sitting so off-centered. He's always like, why is it crooked? If you have OCD, I'm sorry. I don't pay attention to that stuff. Let's see if it's not. Nope. May do it. Maybe? Is that better? Oh, wait, I'm still blurry. Back to business. So when we're dealing with erythrophobia, it is this constant cycle of, am I gonna flush? Am I gonna blush? Am I gonna turn red? And then we in turn create the redness ourselves psychologically, which then have the physiological effects on our systems. It is just an endless cycle. And so for a lot of people, what I suggest is, number one, get into some sort of support group where you can actually talk about how you're feeling. This is a phobia that causes a lot of people to just completely shut down and not want to talk about it because it's so embarrassing, and it's something that they feel very ridiculed about and a lot of shame around. So the number one thing I would say to you is absolutely get in some sort of support group where you can talk, whether that be online groups. A lot of companies offer employee assistance programs that are usually offering a couple or up to 3 or 4 free sessions of counseling. I would highly suggest that you get into some sort of counseling. Number 2, and which is kind of a caveat to the counseling, I would highly recommend that you get into some sort of cognitive behavioral therapy, whether that is working with a practitioner or a therapist and having somebody help you think about what you're thinking about. And that will help you kind of reframe your mind around what your thoughts are in regards to you and when you turn red. For a lot of people, there is a huge shame element around turning red. So I would highly suggest that you look into some sort of cognitive behavioral professional that can help you just think about what you're thinking about. Number 3, let's talk about exposure therapy, or just exposures. It doesn't have to actually be a form of therapy. It can just be exposures. And that is leaning into the things that make you most uncomfortable, which is one of the hardest things to do because who wants to put themselves in a situation to be seen in a way that makes them really uncomfortable? But there is something about, just similar to the CBT that I was just referencing, that just helps you reframe your mind when you've put yourself in a situation that you've been avoiding because you're very afraid of it, and then you show up you are inviting that thing in, you're leaning into it, and you start to see, I survived, I'm okay, it may have been uncomfortable, but I survived and I'm gonna live. And then the next time you show up in that type of environment, your body has a different reaction knowing that you survived it last time. Doesn't always mean that you're gonna get over it in the first 1 or 2 or 3 tries. Sometimes you have to keep showing up and keep inviting yourself into the exposure environment to really see some changes. Number 4, talk to your doctor or a medical professional, practitioner that can help you talk about medication options. For a lot of people who turn red, beta blockers have been a great tool with reducing some of the blushing. I know for myself, I have many videos on this, that I did and do take propranolol. It is a beta blocker. It helps calm the nervous system, stops some of that like adrenal reaction, and you're able to kind of let your mind settle and not flush as often. And tip number 5, which is the one I think most people get to this point and go, oh man, really? Tip number 5 is acceptance. I know that might not be the sexiest part of this process. I know that might not be the greatest tip of what you wanted to hear, but you have to get into a place of accepting you, all of you. And if you turn red, how does that make you any less of you? I think we all deal with things that we wish we could change to improve our appearance or make ourselves a little better. And I know for myself, when I set goals because I want to be my best self, it's around things that I can really control. Getting up earlier, reading more books, doing more exercise, drinking more water. There's a lot of different things that I can put into place to make myself the best version of me. But when it comes to turning red, I can't always control that. And so as much as I wish I could whip that into shape, I just cannot. I can do practices and meditations and get good sleep and take my vitamins and talk to my doctor and talk to a therapist and do acupuncture and see my functional neurologist, and I can do all of these things, which I think you should, to take care of yourself and your nervous system. But at the end of the day, if I cannot control turning red, did that make me fail? I think one of the biggest problems with erythrophobia and the blushing and flushing situation is that a lot of times we carry the weight of a shame over something we cannot control. It is something that is deep wired, deep rooted, and a lot of times just has to do with our skin tone and the way our vascular system is working. Honestly, people who are more fair skinned are gonna have a little more opportunity to turn red because of the way the vascular system sits up against the skin. So getting ourselves into a mindset of, what if I never stop turning red? What are all the goals and ambitions that I have for my life? Is that gonna stop me? Can I do those things even if I turn red? And how am I gonna face those opportunities? We can run and hide, or we can step into them. We can lean into them, so to speak. So working with someone and yourself and walking yourself through the process of radical acceptance is a big ask, but it's also the ultimate cure, I believe, of this condition. And by cure, I don't necessarily mean that it's going away. I mean that we've gotten over ourselves, we've gotten over our headspace around what it means. And whether that means that we're educating people about what it means and why it happens in our bodies, and even trying to understand more so why it happens to us, so that we can better explain it to others. And also be a support for those who are dealing with some of the same issues. There you have it. Those are my 5 tips for social anxiety, erythrophobia, and overcoming ourselves. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. I have plenty of content on this topic, as well as many interviews with people who have dealt with and are going through, or who have overcome some of these same situations that you are going through. And until next time, I'll see you in my next video.